Okay, Mike, reducing property taxes and keeping the city financially viable at the same time. How can that be done?
Well, very good. And let me say that it's absolutely true that there's a consensus among the people that property taxes are exceptionally too high. During our last budget sessions last year, we had a variety of town hall meetings. There were 6 of them. I attended 5. And throughout the city, people spoke out, and there was a universal call to make cuts at City Hall and to reduce the property taxes. It absolutely needs to be done. And what we have to focus on, you have to, 1, reduce taxes, clearly. And then 2, you have to couple that with economic development, and that is business attraction and business retention. But businesses will not come to our town in the number and size necessary if we don't first lower the taxes. You've got to be able to attract them and want to make them come in, because otherwise we're not going to be able to compete with Monitor Township and Bangor Township. We've got to draw them in. So of course we have to then reduce the size and cost of government. So how do we go about doing that in a sufficiently bold manner and still provide the necessary services? I'll tell you one aspect in particular where we can make a substantial change for the city and still provide excellent services is with regard to our fire department, the way it's structured and funded. Right now the fire department is a $6 million budget. We're a town of less than, it's approximately 34,000 people at this point in time. We have a declining population, declining tax base. And so what we need to do is adopt the same system that is in all the surrounding municipalities, all the surrounding townships, also the city of Mount Pleasant and the city of Troy. Troy has, believe it or not, almost all volunteer fire force. Mount Pleasant has half full-time, half volunteer. All the townships have some form of, they call it paid on call or they call it volunteer, and they have some full-time firefighters. We need to make substantial reductions there. We could actually expand the size of the firefighting force by using predominantly volunteers with a small cadre of paid full-time expert professionals. I think we could probably run that $6 million budget for $3 million or $2 million in discussions with the city manager and the deputy city manager for economic development. When you look at it, we've only had about 12 fires last year in Bay City. So if you look at it just from a firefighting perspective, the citizens of this town are paying approximately $500,000 every time we extinguish a fire, no matter how small it is. That just doesn't make economic sense. Now, the firefighters do a lot more, clearly, based on their budget, than fighting fires. In fact, they are predominantly medical first responders. 72% of all of their calls are medical runs. Now, we've got an ambulance service in this town, and quite frankly, what we have to do is eliminate the fire department from running the medical runs. If you wanted some hybrid form, there's some municipalities that will only send them out in cardiac cases, which is fine. We could also equip the police with defibrillators to attend to that as well. But we need to let the private sector ambulance service and bring in competition if that's what it takes to expand. They can then be taxed, so the more revenue for the city. They take care of getting people to hospital. We fight fires, and now you've got a $3 to $4 million savings annually that can be either used to reduce property taxes or to directly pay for infrastructure repair to a large degree, either just with that money, or you could take that money and use that as the annual payment of a tens of millions of dollar, multi-million-dollar bond, and you could fix half the streets and sewers in this town in short order.
Interesting. Follow up now to that, a hot one. In your advertising, you're saying to elect you and avoid a city income tax. How is that going to play out in this campaign? Is there really a move for an income tax? I had not heard that.
Well, there certainly was, and then it fell silent right up about the time of just after the primaries. I mean, the primaries, prior to that time, there was a newspaper article in the Bay City Times on February 18th, very prominent folks in the community pushing for a city income tax. One of the gentlemen who's running for city commissioner for the 6th Ward, certainly that's his platform, and we were able to kill that on the city commission. which I'm very proud of. And but nonetheless, he came to the podium and said he and his supporters were bringing it back after the elections, as he stared me right in the eyes, and as I've said, his meaning was not lost on me. So it's a very real issue. It must be dealt with. I've vowed, without equivocation whatsoever, to veto it at any possible opportunity. I don't know of any plan that would result at best in economic stagnation and at worst in economic catastrophe than a city income tax. You will have businesses that will go no more than 5 miles and find themselves in perhaps nicer buildings, more modern anyway, and have half the taxes than they do now. There's no way you're going to bring new businesses to this town when they can locate in the townships and still have the same client base if there's a city income tax. It must be resisted. And just briefly, what will happen also is the people that are being promised that their life will be better because of this will actually end up worse, because the people that are the most affluent will leave, the businesses will leave, and you have already an aging and declining tax base, declining population, and so there's going to be greater and greater pressure on those folks to have to pay more and more. And I'll tell you what, the government will just then do what it always does and raise the property tax again, because we don't have the political willpower to make the necessary cuts. We've demonstrated that over the years. And so in my mind, it's absolutely necessary to not go in that direction for the protection of the residents. And the only reason we would go in that direction is because we don't make the necessary cuts first.
Okay.